You ever get the feeling your life's about to turn into one of those stories you hear at the bar and don't quite believe? Yeah, that was me. I always thought my biggest problem with the HOA would be something dumb like a passive-aggressive letter about the color of my mailbox being too unique, or my grass daring to grow an extra half-inch taller than Brenda's perfect little patch next door. I'd heard plenty of horror stories, but not once did I picture the day my barn, my own private barn, would become ground zero for the wildest, pettiest standoff our neighborhood had ever seen, with my 2,000-pound prize bulls as the unlikeliest party crashers you've ever met. All this while I was 3 hours away, peacefully fishing, absolutely clueless about the chaos brewing back home. You know what I mean? Sometimes reality just jumps the fence and sprints way past fiction. So, here's the setup. My place sits on a decent chunk of land. Nothing massive, but enough to remind folks that yes, you are still in the country, even if the new houses popping up like mushrooms are trying their hardest to erase that. I'd been here going on 15 years, long before anybody thought up Whispering Pines Estates and all their fancy community standards. My property was grandfathered in mostly out of reach from the little power games the HOA liked to play, which, believe me, drove their president Brenda absolutely nuts. Brenda, she's a real character. If by character you mean the type who'd show up at your door with a smile that could freeze lava helmet hair that'd survive a hurricane and a white SUV that screamed, "Can I speak to your manager?" She was on a mission to make every blade of grass and every mailbox match her vision of suburban utopia and my working barn. Well, that was just a smudge she couldn't scrub out. Now my barn is no eyesore. It's an old solid thing, classic red with white trim, a little weathered but built to last. That's where I keep all my tools, some ancient tractor parts I swear I'll get around to fixing, and most important of all, it's home to my bulls Duke and Earl. 2 absolute units, gentle but the size of a small car, who don't bother anybody unless you give them a reason. That barn smells like honest work, not lavender air freshener and desperate attempts at small talk. Trouble showed up the way it usually does, smiling, polite, and with a catch. Brenda, of course, dragging along her VP Gary, a man who looks like he apologizes for existing, showed up one sunny Saturday with what she called a lovely request. They wanted to use my barn for their HOA's annual summer gala because nothing says community like authentic country charm or some such nonsense. I just about spit out my coffee picturing a bunch of suburbanites dodging cow pies and high heels, but I kept it civil. Brenda thanks, but no thanks. That's a working barn, not an event space. Insurance would be a nightmare, and besides, it's private property. She kept smiling, but her eyes got that cold blue ice glint. We'll handle everything clean up and all, and we have event insurance. It'd mean a lot to the community. I told her again no, not happening. She left Gary scurrying after her, but I knew right then this wasn't the end. That gut feeling got worse when their next HOA newsletter showed up courtesy of a neighbor who likes to keep me in the loop. Right there, bold as brass summer gala to be held at the historic Henderson barn. Like my no was just a cute little speed bump. I was furious. This was a line in the sand moment. I called Brenda, left a clear voicemail. The barn is off limits. If you try to hold your event here, it's trespassing. Never got a call back. Instead, I started spotting Gary's sedan, doing slow drive-bys. Saw Brenda peering through binoculars from her car like she was casing the place for Ocean's 11. It was almost funny if it wasn't so damn annoying. Now, I'm not one to back down, and I'm definitely not stupid. I started documenting everything. Emails, voicemails, newsletter copies, even snuck a photo of Brenda's surveillance mission. I checked local laws, made sure every door and window on the barn was locked up tighter than a drum. My bulls were due for a stint inside anyway, so I figured let's see how much country charm Brenda really wants. And as luck or fate would have it, I had my annual fishing trip already on the calendar, same weekend as their planned shindig. No alibi, needed just me doing what I always do. The plan was simple. Bulls in the barn, every door locked, and me 3 hours away with no signal catching trout and enjoying the silence. Let's see how they handle that. The day before the big event, sweet old Mrs. Gable calls me. She's my unofficial neighborhood lookout. She'd overheard Brenda crowing about a master key from a previous owner. I almost laughed. Any key old Mr. Abernathy had was useless by now. I'd changed every lock when I moved in. But it confirmed they were going to try something. Come Saturday, I did my chores, led Duke and Earl into the barn with a little treat, made sure they had food, water, fresh straw, the works. Locked every door, checked every bolt. The place was basically a fortress. Then I loaded up the truck, waved to the bored kid in the HOA golf cart, and drove off to Miller's Lake. Now, I didn't see what happened next, but between Mrs. Gable's running commentary and Brenda's voicemails, I got a pretty good picture. The HOA crew, dressed to the nines, rolled up ready to decorate and party, only to find every door locked tight. You can just imagine Brenda's rage, Gary's panic, and the mounting confusion as they tried every entrance. Eventually, someone spotted a tiny ventilation shutter, one not quite as beefy as the others, and managed to wedge it open with a ladder, shoving some poor skinny teenager through. He dropped down inside, opened the side door, and let the rest of them in. Right into the company of two massive, very confused bulls, standing where Brenda pictured a dance floor. Let me back up a sec if you've never seen city folks face to face with a 1,000-pound bull. It's a treat. Brenda shrieked, the DJ froze, caterers ran for cover, and everyone else noped out real fast. The party was over before it started. Duke and Earl just stood there chewing hay, not impressed by the spectacle one bit. Meanwhile, I was at the lake wrestling trout and grinning like a fool. My phone, mercifully silent, eventually buzzed with a mountain of missed calls. Brenda's voicemails ranged from shrill outrage to threats of lawsuits to desperate pleas for me to come remove these dangerous animals. Yeah, that happened. I listened to a couple, laughed, and went back to fishing. If they wanted to break into my barn and throw a party for the bulls, well, that was on them. I got home late Sunday feeling pretty good about life, only to spot tire marks in my driveway and a sheriff's car parked nearby. Here we go, I thought. The young deputy came over, calm and professional, asking if I knew anything about an event being disrupted by livestock in my barn. I laid it all out. Brenda's requests, my refusals, the newsletter, the locks, the fishing trip. Brenda herself showed up mid-conversation, screeching accusations. I kept my cool, pointed out the pry marks on the shutter, and asked how exactly she thought she was allowed in. The deputy listened, took some notes, checked on Duke and Earl, who looked like they'd slept through the apocalypse, and told Brenda in no uncertain terms that she'd trespassed and that this was her one and only warning. The look on her face, priceless. Gary shrank back like he wanted to disappear. After that, things moved fast. Word spread through the neighborhood Brenda had overstepped big time. The next HOA meeting, from what I heard, was an absolute circus. Neighbors finally spoke up, sick of Brenda's power trip. She tried to blame everyone but herself. Gary tried to claim he'd been against it all along, nobody bought it. Within a month, Brenda was voted down in a landslide. The new president, a retired school teacher with common sense, made it her mission to rewrite the rules and remind everyone what private property means. Life got quiet again. I installed a couple of cameras, mostly for show, and Duke and Earl got some extra treats for being the world's most effective bouncers. Neighbors dropped by with beers and stories, and my barn became something of a local legend, the one that beat the HOA. I never set out to be some folk hero, but it felt good to remind everyone that you don't get to trample over people just because you have a clipboard and a newsletter. Looking back, it's almost funny. The whole thing was so absurd, grown adults breaking into a barn, running from bulls, the president of the HOA, screeching about community spirit while committing a felony. But it drove home a real point. Stand your ground. Keep your receipts and don't let anyone bully you out of your rights, no matter how loud they are or how many rules they wave in your face. Sometimes all you need is a locked door, a fishing rod, and a couple of very large, very unimpressed bulls to remind folks where the line is. So what do you think? Did I do the right thing, or did I take it too far? Ever had to get creative dealing with over-the-top neighbors or HOAs? I'd love to hear your stories. Drop a comment below. Let's get the debate going. And if you enjoyed hearing how 2 bulls and 1 fishing trip saved my sanity, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, and stick around for more tales of rural justice.